Opening the door to austerity opponents, Greece is forced to call snap elections, reigniting uncertainty over the long-simmering debt crisis. Could Greece go back on its multi-billion-dollar bailout deal? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Sami Zeidan. Well, once described as Europe's problem child, Greece is on the brink of yet more political upheaval. Snap elections have been called for January the 25th, raising concern the uncertainty could reignite a long-simmering debt crisis. Well, Greece is showing signs of recovery after 6 years of recession, thanks to, of course, multi-billion-dollar bailouts from the European Union and the International Monetary Fund. But resentment remains, though, over stringent austerity measures imposed as part of that rescue package. Germany's finance minister is one official, warning Greece has no alternative to hard reforms. But the leader of the opposition Syriza party is already announcing austerity will be history if his left-wing party triumphs at the ballot box.
Let it be clear to everyone both inside and outside the country. The Greek people can decide, and only them. Greeks hold the key to the country. Today, my friends, is the beginning of the end of the regime that sunk the country into poverty, unemployment, grief and desperation. The beginning of the end of those who were shamelessly servants of catastrophic policies.
Snap elections were announced after Greek MPs failed to choose a new president. And according to the constitution, the vote's failure means Parliament has to be dissolved. Al Jazeera's Jonah Hull has more from Athens now.
Tradition is a fine thing. The Evzones, or Presidential Guard on patrol outside Parliament, a sign that some things never change. Nor do Greece's quarrelling politicians. The government's failed bid to have its candidate endorsed as president on Monday has forced Greece into fresh elections.
And I very strongly believe that the pro-European forces and those forces who have been for the necessary structural changes in this country will prevail. And I'm very optimistic on this.
The Prime Minister's optimism isn't reflected in the opinion polls, where the far-left opposition coalition Syriza is in the lead. It plans to overturn the country's austerity programme and international debt commitments. The effect on the financial markets could be ruinous for Greece.
Syriza has agitated for snap elections, and it's got them now, and it will be put to the test. It's a theory that the Eurozone will accept some kind of different deal will be put to the test in this election campaign. Its plans for the economy. Questions will be raised about, if it comes to government in late January, how will it fund Greece if it's not receiving loans from the Eurozone? These are vital questions that it will have to answer in the next few weeks.
The government's defeat in this vote triggers a national election that few besides some of the politicians actually want. 58% of Greeks in the latest poll say they aren't interested in new elections. Now, some of those that I've spoken to say they simply don't trust that the politicians any longer care what the Greek people want or need. 6 years of recession, rising poverty levels, 25% unemployment. Greeks aren't short of problems.
We should not be going to early elections. I believe that once again the Greek people will be led to make the wrong decisions.
I think it is necessary to have elections because the situation here is tragic. People are desperate. Something needs to change.
And though tradition remains, it is of comfort to few. Jonah Hull, Al Jazeera, Athens.
Let's bring in our guest into the discussion now. Joining us from Athens is George Kratsas, a corporate lawyer and specialist in European Union law and financial regulation. And joining us from London is Andrew Hilton, Director of the Centre for the Study of Financial Innovation. Good to have you with us. Let's start with Andrew. Is it a surprise that the Greek Parliament wasn't able to elect a president and avoid this point, early elections again?
It was a little bit of a surprise to me. I figured that turkeys don't vote for Christmas, and these MPs, at least 20% of them, are going to find themselves without a seat after the January 25th election. So I thought in the end they'd go along with it, but I was wrong.
You know, there were claims that the rules were being bent to ensure a president would be voted in. I'm sure you heard about the claims that everything from bribes were being offered, jailed members of parliament were being allowed to vote, just to make sure that we didn't come to this. Is it a sign of just how strong sentiment is against the austerity measures that we're at this point?
Well, I think so, yes. But I also think that these stories about bribes being offered made it very, very difficult for those that the government was trying to get to switch their votes to actually to switch. It almost appeared that if you switched your vote, everyone would assume you were taking a payoff. And in that sense, I think that was counterproductive.
Interesting.
But yes, the feeling against austerity is tremendously deep in Greece at the moment, amongst all classes.
All right, strong sentiment against austerity. George, is this not a victory for democracy, for Greece to be ruled in the interests of the people rather than the banks and foreign powers?
Sami, I think this is a very controversial statement to make. In fact, what has been the view at the moment is that Greeks tend to be against the prospect of snap elections. This, in fact, has been recorded over and over again in every opinion poll. I'd say it is a paradox to resort to new elections right now, at this point in time, in such a difficult economic environment. I may say Syriza, I would not believe that Syriza would have abused the presidential election procedure in such a way, going against the constitution in order to force snap elections.
But hang on, the opposition's, it is a controversial, you're right, you know, everything about this subject is controversial right now. But Syriza would say that the polls also show that people are against what the current government is doing, against the austerity measures, and that a lot of people feel left out of the decision making, or their interests are left out of the decision making.
You are absolutely right that Greeks are indeed tired of austerity. They have had enough. But at the same time, they are conscious of the risks underscoring such a snap election in such a sensitive economic time. The reason is that no one knows what exactly the future holds at the moment, if instability ensues from those snap elections. And this is why in the opinion polls, the Greek population has been recording an opposition to the prospect of snap elections. This is why, in fact, you have asked whether this is a victory for democracy. What has happened here is that Syriza has abused the constitutional procedure of the election of the president for its own means, for the purpose of forcing new elections and causing the current government to fall. The constitution allows Syriza to say disagree with the name of the proposed president. Syriza has not done this.
I think that's
all right, hang on,
nonsense.
let's Andrew, go ahead.
I think that's nonsense. The person who called the election over the presidency was the current Prime Minister. He didn't have to. He chose to. Under those circumstances, it's perfectly permissible for Syriza to vote against and to encourage its supporters to vote against. It isn't, however, certain that Syriza will win the elections. The polls have been narrowing. As everyone knows, Syriza is now ahead no more than 3 points in the polls, and it could well be that by January the 25th, Syriza will not be the winner in the elections. But Syriza was quite within its constitutional rights.
Right, okay, George, I'll give you a comeback very briefly.
You seem to disregard exactly the interpretation of the Constitution in this stage, because the Constitution allows Syriza to disagree as to the name of the president. However, what happens is Syriza has refused to discuss any names, any proposal, even if it has not raised any criticisms against the current presidential candidate, Stavros Dimas, who everyone acknowledged is a fit personality for president. The Greek government has been in negotiations with the Troika for agreeing as to the final installment, and it has not been able to do so because of the instability caused by Syriza. The Greek government had absolutely no option but to call the to begin the presidential election procedure as a way of getting out of this instability. Now everyone is in front of their own responsibilities. And I'm afraid Syriza seems to have taken this opportunity to abuse the system.
You made your point on that one, George. Let's perhaps remind ourselves at this point about the economic situation in the country, since we're talking about austerity. Well, when Greece took that massive bailout in 2010, the austerity measures, of course, came with it, and supporters said it was the only way to save an economy on the brink. And there are now some signs of recovery. The country is no longer in a recession that's lasted 6 years, but for many Greeks, it has come at a huge cost. Austerity measures have consumed around a quarter of the country's gross domestic product. Public debt stands at 170% of GDP, and the unemployment rate has tripled to more than 25%. Andrew, when you look at figures like that, I mean, can you say that the bailout deal is a success story?
No, I don't think you can. I have a lot of sympathy with those in Greece who argue that there should be a renegotiation of the terms of the bailout. I have a lot of sympathy for those who say that there should be some sort of debt forgiveness. People forget that Germany, which is, if you like, which has the whip hand when it comes to Greece, actually had its own debt renegotiated and rescheduled in 1953, the debt that it had incurred in 2 world wars. Half of that was written off and the rest was extended to 30 years. It isn't unreasonable for the Greeks to say, look, we have suffered too much pain. The unemployment is too great. Our best people are emigrating. There isn't a social security net worth a damn in Greece. We need some help, and we need some help to cut the amount of the debt, not to pile more debt on, but actually to cut the debt and to extend the term of that which still remains. I think that's a reasonable request.
All right, let's take those points to George. One wonders, of course, people in your camp have been accused of also playing politics with people's fears, warning that any sort of election would lead to a situation where Greece would give up the progress that's been made in the economy. Do you think that would really be the case if Syriza wins the elections, as many expect because of the polls? Do you think it would really lead to Greece leaving the bailout, cancelling, reneging on the bailout deals, or is it more likely to lead to some kind of renegotiation of the terms of the bailout?
Okay, well, first of all, let's assert that Greece does not have the same bargaining power today that it used to have 2 or 3 years ago. In fact, Greece exiting the euro is not likely to be as catastrophic to the eurozone as it was in the past. And the reason is because most financial institutions have already factored in a possible Greek exit. The majority of Greece's external debt is held by the official sector, so not the private sector. So overall, a Greek exit is not likely to be this financial Armageddon causing a domino effect that we have been discussing in the past. Nonetheless, it's still likely to be catastrophic for Greece. So this is important. Taking this into account, it is reasonable to expect that leaders will refuse, European partners will refuse to cancel or renegotiate the bailout scheme as it stands, leaving with Syriza with very little option but to accept it, cause a default or exit the euro, unfortunately, which is the scenario everyone wishes to avoid.
All right, Andrew, on that point, I mean, you may have sympathy, but is it realistic, given what George said there, the next Greek government, won't it really have its back against the wall? If you look at some of the timelines here, the IMF, as I'm sure you're aware, putting a review of Greece on hold until there's a next election, or until there's a new government. That basically means Greece is in a situation where the current loans will expire around the time a new government is coming into play, and needs cash. I mean, if you don't have cash, how can you negotiate when the alternative is not so scary anymore for the rest of Europe, as George pointed out there?
I think George is absolutely right about that. I mean, it's quite clear that the peripheral European markets, Spain, Italy and Portugal, have somehow deconnected from the Greek problem. That's true, and that undoubtedly does diminish Greece's bargaining position. But Alexis Tsipras has not been sitting on his bottom for the last 3 months. He's been going around Europe. He's been talking to people. He's been talking to Schäuble. He's been talking to the people in Brussels. He's been talking to the IMF. They know really what his bottom line is. And they're going to talk very tough up until the election, but negotiations are going to start. And my guess, and it's only a guess, my guess is that they'll try and give him something. They'll try and give him something that will enable him to turn to the allies that he will have, because it will have to be a coalition, and say, look, we've got something. We're not going to leave the euro. Nobody in Greece wants to leave the euro. Personally, I think they should, but nobody I've ever met in Greece wants to leave the euro. So what is it? What do we need to give to stay in the euro? What will they give us as a reward, if you like, for staying in the euro? And it's negotiations. I mean, this is politics. It's not religion.
This is very interesting. George, your response to that, I mean, that basically sums up what some people say about the current administration. You know, the current administration is not in a position to perhaps get more from European partners, but once there's been new elections, once there is a shift in an opposite direction, then Europe will have to take notice and start negotiating on different terms with Greece. Is there not something to be said for that opinion?
Well, it's important to bear in mind that until now, until this recent instability caused, Greece was very well on its track to a full recovery from the economic crisis. It has been, and this is an argument against what Syriza has been professing in the last few years. There has been, in the second and third quarter of 2014, Greece has managed to record positive growth rates. So Syriza has been proved wrong with regard to this point. They have been professing that unemployment will never drop. Instead, it will continue to rise if we remain within the bailout program. Again, they have been proved wrong because unemployment peaked and is now dropping. So in my view, the program is working as it is. There is still a need. We are now 2 months officially from officially ending the program. What is required is an agreement to agree on the final installment, after which Greece will hopefully be able to stand on its own feet. It would be really regrettable to throw all this away and sacrifice all this progress made, all this endurance suffered by the Greek people, simply to prove an ideological point of being anti-bailout or anti-establishment or I don't know what else.
Okay, I can see Andrew shaking his head in disagreement perhaps. Go ahead, Andrew.
Well, I think the ideological point is on the other side. The ideological point is the Washington consensus, that you absolutely have to stick by your debts. You have to do whatever it takes to service them, no matter how unrealistic it is. I mean, Greece has a debt service ratio of 175% of GDP. You cannot possibly expect the economy to recover in the long term with that kind of level of debt. There has to be a renegotiation. There has to be debt relief. It doesn't matter whether it's Samaras or Tsipras or whoever. Somebody has to bite the bullet and say, we cannot pay this. In order for us to grow in a significant sense, yes, the Greek economy is growing. It's growing at 0.8% this year and perhaps 1.5% next year. But that's from a very, very low base. To get the growth rate up to something which is reasonable, which in Greece's case now is probably 4.5%, there has to be debt relief. You cannot just continue to squeeze the economy and squeeze the economy forever. And the fact that unemployment is actually falling now reflects two things. Reflects, one, how bad the situation was. It was dreadful. 57% for youth unemployment and also emigration. Greeks move. They are mobile. We'd like to get some of them back, I would think.
We're going to bring a third perspective into the show. So let's thank our first two guests at this point, Andrew Hilton in London and George Kratsas in Athens. And we were hoping to hear from Anastasia Giamali at the start of the show. She's a journalist for the Dawn newspaper. That's a publication politically associated with the Syriza party. But she is here now, so let's bring her into the discussion. Anastasia, there is a key question here. What does Syriza want? If Syriza comes to power, will it try to completely cancel, renege on the bailout deal, as some party members have been talking about? Or is it more likely that it will change its stance and simply try to renegotiate terms of the bailout?
Syriza's program specifically states that there should be an audit of the public debt and a negotiation of the interest. of the interest due and suspension of payments until the economy has revived and growth and employment return. All these years, the plan of the Greek economy, the plan the Greek government has agreed to with our creditors is non-viable. This is a widely accepted view by economists all around the world. The only economists that are not accepting this viewpoint, this argument, are those that are around Angela Merkel, the Chancellor of Germany. Even Wolfgang Munschau from the Financial Times, who is not a left-wing media, as we all know, wrote an article saying that the radical left is right about the debt.
Okay, but hang on, you know what opponents of the Syriza party would say. What cards do you have in your pocket right now to renegotiate terms of the bailout? The threat of Greece defaulting, pulling out of the Eurozone, and the threat that that would cause potentially to other European economies is not so great today as it was 6 years ago. What do you have to negotiate with?
We have to negotiate the stability and the future of Europe and the future of European Union. We can see that Europe is changing. We have had quantitative easing in Italy and in France, for Italy and for France. But in Greece, the plan and the solution and the recipe is austerity and more austerity. Here in Syriza, the people of Syriza believe that austerity is no longer a solution. The austerity program imposed to Greece dropped the gross domestic product by 25%. It raised unemployment to 25% and to 60% for the younger people.
But it does seem,
sorry
to interrupt you, it does seem, according to some of the economic indicators, it does seem that some of the economic indicators at least are improving, right? The economy is out of recession. Might that be jeopardized?
The economy is not out of recession. We had the summer months, and during the summer always the economic situation in Greece is always better because of the tourists coming in. But this is not enough to change the situation. We have unemployment at the same stage as it was a few months ago. We have security, the social security, the social welfare state collapsing. We have people committing suicides because of economic problems, and we have kids going to school without any food.
Okay, so difficulties
the
remain, no doubt.
Is
but
far from
all right,
good.
There is a key question here. We've got a couple of minutes. What alternative? You said that the bargaining card in your hand is the stability, or the wider stability and future of Europe. If your European partners dig their heels in, what is the alternative to the bailout deal? Do you have an alternative plan? Is it raiding, for example, the deposits of private depositors? Is it going back to the bond market? Is it likely you'd be able to get finances together from any other source?
Syriza's program is talking about demanding the European Union to change the role of the European Central Bank so that it finances states and programs of public investments. Although, even if the European Union says no to Syriza's program, which is unlikely given the situation in Greece and given the humanitarian crisis, Syriza has a program, a domestic program that could move along for many months until the negotiation completes.
What is the domestic program?
Syriza is going to raise the income tax to 75% for all incomes over 500,000 euros. It will increase taxes on big companies in order to reach the European average. It will tackle tax evasion. We should note that in Greece we have a huge tax evasion problem, especially we should note that many family members of government officials have their names within the lists of tax evaders or of people taking the money abroad. This must change.
We'll have to leave it there for now. Thanks for your thoughts, Anastasia Giamali in Athens. And feel free to add your thoughts to the discussion. You can post your comments at facebook.com/AJ Inside Story or contact us on Twitter. Our handle is @AJ Inside Story. I'm Sami Zeidan. Thanks for watching for now. It's goodbye.